Hello viewers, welcome back. Today we are going to understand and learn a very interesting topic on classroom management. In classroom management, we are also going to discuss about various behavior modification techniques in order to deal with children with behavioral problems. Before that, let us look at the objectives of classroom management topic. The first objective is to understand the meaning of what exactly we understand by classroom management. The second objective would be to understand what are the various behavioral problems among school children. In addition to this, we are also going to understand what exactly the principles that are needed for an effective classroom management. And also it is very important that we need certain psychological methods, the behavior modification techniques which are necessary to deal with problem children. First, let us understand what do we mean by classroom management. Classroom management involves a set of techniques and skills that needs to be used by the teacher in order to function effectively in the classroom. It also includes various teaching methods. Apart from this, there are other technical skills such as teaching resource materials, understanding the pupils, understanding the environment, and also effective use of classroom climate. Nearly almost every teacher agree that the effective classroom management involves effective teaching. Therefore, we can say that any teacher who is involved in teaching practice in the classroom, he or she better understands that there needs to be a classroom management. And again, classroom management involves various techniques and skills, as I told you. It has been understood that classroom management and discipline are the terms that are used quite interchangeably, but they are not synonyms. At the same time, these two terms, classroom management and discipline, are being used by the teachers quite often. What exactly the teacher does in the classroom and how best the teacher is able to manage the classroom. When we understand, we all know that when we see a classroom, it involves students, there is a blackboard, there are certain teaching aids in the classroom. At the same time, there are students from different socio-cultural as well as socio-economic background. Therefore, it becomes a challenge for the teacher to deal with various aspects of classroom. What is the aim of the teacher in order to have a proper classroom environment? The teacher should be able to foster a positive environment in the classroom, and it is very important that there is a sense of cooperation that needs to be established, and also the aim of the teacher is to have a productive learning environment in the classroom. Here are a few principles of classroom management which are basic requirements for a teacher to understand. The first involves careful planning. Now, when we say careful planning, it includes the teacher's learning material, the teacher's lesson plan, and all these equipped with the teacher himself or herself in order to address the students. It also includes realistic learning environment. The teacher should be able to equip with the learning content and the knowledge with which the teacher is supposed to give the knowledge to the students. In addition to careful planning, the teacher should be able to anticipate the misbehavior of the students. Now, it is very evident through observational methods whether a student is able to concentrate on a concept or whether a student is disturbing the class, and all these factors needs to be observed by the teacher as part of his or her instruction process. Further, it is also important for the teacher, in order to create a positive classroom environment, the teacher should be able to establish a positive environment, or in terms of a receptive class atmosphere. When we say a receptive class atmosphere, it talks about a friendly environment in the classroom. The teacher should be able to smile, the teacher should establish basic rapport between the students and the teacher. Therefore, it involves a happy learning environment. Therefore, it is always not right that the teacher should be very serious in the classroom, but the teacher should be able to establish a friendly environment in the classroom. In addition to all this, sometimes a teacher becomes a counselor. An effective teacher is the one who is able to understand the problems of the students and also giving a particular suggestions and counseling to the students as well. So, it is a basic requirement that the teacher is able to understand the problems of the students and also deals with the problems. I would also like to put forth another important principle, that is creating interest in the lessons. Now, it becomes very important role for the teacher to create an important interest in the lesson. Therefore, creating interest should be taken place in terms of storytelling. Say for example, if the teacher wants to introduce a topic on rain, the teacher can be able to narrate a story by saying that as I was starting from my home, there was a rain and I got wet, and again I had to go back home and then change my dress, and then I had to come back to the class. So, today we are going to start about the topic on rain. So, this might create a sense of interest in the student to be effective in the classroom. It is also important that maintaining good interpersonal relations with the students is an essential component in the classroom management. The teacher should be able to involve all the students at individual level, also at group level, in order to have a one-to-one relationship. And very importantly, judicious use of rewards and punishments. The teacher should be wise enough to appreciate the students and also give punishments in terms of homework or in terms of any kind of punishment that the student is able to realize it. Therefore, the judicious use of rewards and punishments are necessary for the teacher to perform. Finally, the teacher is the one who is able to understand the group dynamics in the classroom. Therefore, the teacher should be able to inculcate group behaviors, group cohesiveness, teamwork in terms of giving projects, assignments. Here are a few technically and research based principles that have been worked by Jyoti in the year 1991. The first principle is principle of clarity and mastery over the content. It is very important that every teacher is equipped with knowledge and the teacher is able to deliver and address the content to the students. The second important principle is the participation and involvement. Not only the teacher teaches, but it should be that the teacher is able to participate and also involves the student in the learning process. Now, the teacher would give a wide range of opportunity for interaction in this aspect. Therefore, the teacher should use and develop various mechanisms and skills of question and answers. Sometimes it becomes very necessary that the student needs to be questioned in the classroom, and also if the student is unable to answer, it is the teacher who should be able to accommodate with the right answer. Therefore, this creates a sense of participation as well as involvement in the classroom. The third important principle according to Jyoti is that it is the principle of fostering democratic behavior. When we say democratic behavior, every teacher should be able to inculcate leadership qualities among the students, and also the teacher should be able to guide the students to take up leadership skills. The fourth important principle is the principle of action. In this aspect, the teacher manifests his ideas with the students in terms of self-determination, in terms of strong willpower, in terms of confidence levels, and also in terms of self-knowledge. This gives a sense of responsibility to lead and activate the classroom environment. The fifth important principle is the principle of firmness. When we say firmness, it is the individual's right decisiveness. Therefore, the teacher has to remain firm in his or her teachings so that the instruction process is effective. The firmness of a teacher will be able to control his or her behavior from within self, not only within self, but it is also helping the students to control their own behaviors as well. Therefore, fostering firmness is very essential principle in the classroom management. Another important principle is flexibility. Now, the teacher cannot sustain with firmness for a longer period of time. The teacher should be able to have flexibility with the students as well. Therefore, Firmness and flexibility should be utilized by the teacher in an appropriate manner. The last important principle is the principle of warmth and enthusiasm. The learning and teaching process should be pleasurable. Every child or every student should enjoy the learning process. Therefore, it is very essential for the teacher to inculcate a warmth and enthusiastic and a lively classroom. Therefore, it is always understood that a teacher who is lively in the classroom is most liked by the students. Now we go on to various behavioral problems among the school students. Now it is quite natural that all the young children can be naughty, but it is very important that is it the deviant and impulsive behavior is time to time or whether it is perfect in nature. So no wrong that the children are naughty, but is it a normal behavior being naughty is our concern. Therefore, behavioral problems need to be focused among school children specifically, because some children tend to show some difficulty in their behavioral expressions. Therefore, it is very important that the behavioral problems among students and children are of utmost important observation. Here we are going to discuss about 3 most common behavioral problems or disorders, which include oppositional defiant disorder. In oppositional defiant disorder, this disorder is the one where the students and children have a tendency of rule breaking behavior. These are the students who throw temper tantrums, they argue frequently with elders and also the system or the institutions, and particularly the most familiar adults in their lives such as parents and teachers. And these are the one who refuse to obey the rules. Now these are the students who create problem in the school as well as family. The second important behavioral disorder is conduct disorder. Conduct disorder involves students who frequently lie, who repeatedly are away from school, they are absent for most of the time, and they have a tendency to use drugs and alcohol and other substance use, and at a very early age it is being practiced by these students and children. The third important behavioral disorder is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. The characteristics of ADHD can include inattention, where they have difficulty in concentration, and another important characteristic is impulsivity, where they have a tendency of talking over the top of others, having a short fuse, being accident prone. All these factors are indicative of impulsivity, and in addition to this they have overactivity, which includes constant restlessness or fidgeting. So with this background of knowing what exactly we mean by behavioral problems among children, it is important that there should be an approach or the application of behavior modification in order to bring about a positive change among these children. So how to deal with problem children comes here. The behavior modification technique is based upon Skinner's operant conditioning. So when we talk about Skinner's operant conditioning, you can think of positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Therefore, certain principles which are needed here are, there is a principle which is designated as DCRR. If you can see the slide, the DCRR is being elaborated in the following way. The D indicates drive or motivation, C indicates cue or stimulation, the R indicates response, and the second R indicates reinforcement. With these 4 principles in background, it becomes very essential that there is a need to change, modify the behavior of the individual through these 4 basic principles of learning. There are a few steps to be followed in order to work in terms of behavior modification. Therefore, it is very essential that the first step, which includes identifying the maladaptive behavior or the undesirable behavior, it becomes very essential for the teacher to identify the problem behavior of the child, whether the child is having problem in terms of attention deficit or whether the child is having problem with hyperactivity, or the child is having some problem with conduct disorder or so. Therefore, after identifying, it becomes very important that the problem behavior or the undesirable behavior needs to be carefully analyzed. After the careful analysis of the maladaptive behavior or the undesirable behavior into smaller units, it becomes to the teacher a challenge to work on each unit which needs to be eliminated in an appropriate manner through various techniques of behavior modification. So, here are a few important behavior modification techniques which requires for the teacher in order to work effectively with problem children. The first important behavior modification techniques involves simple extinction. When we say simple extinction, it is lack of reinforcement. To get or to expect a desired behavior, it is very important that the student should be reinforced. But here, in order to get the appropriate behavior, the reinforcement is stopped, or the simple way to eliminate a maladaptive pattern is often to remove the reinforcement. Say for example, if a student is disturbing the class, what does the teacher do? The teacher, instead of looking at the student or shouting at the student, it is better that the teacher is ignoring the student's behavior. Therefore, the simple extinction method could be effective in order to make the child to sit in his place. Another important behavior modification technique include aversion therapy, and this can be given to children various conduct disorders. Therefore, aversion therapy is primarily a way of stopping the maladaptive response for a period of time. Therefore, any undesirable behavior can be stopped in terms of punishments. So, aversion therapy is a method where punishment method is popularly used. Here I would like to quote two important aspects of punishment methods. One is the physical restraint. If we find any student who is misbehaving in the class or who is not obeying the rules of the school, it becomes very important that the child needs to be physically restrained. Sometimes another important method called isolation timeout. If a child is misbehaving in the classroom or misbehaving with the friends or teachers, the child is taken into an isolated place and he is put in an isolated place where there won't be any interaction for some time, even with the class teachers or even with the schoolmates. Therefore, these two important aversion techniques are quite helpful in eliminating certain undesirable behaviors in the classroom as well as even in the family environment. Now, we are going to discuss about another important method or another important technique of behavior modification technique. This includes the systematic use of positive reinforcement. So far we were talking about aversion therapy, which is a negative reinforcement in terms of punishments, but there are certain few important techniques which we can discuss in terms of positive reinforcement. The first includes response shaping. Here the positive reinforcement is often used in response shaping, that is establishing a response that is not initially in the individual's behavior repertoire. This technique has been used quite extensively in working with the behavioral problems of children with ADHD conduct disorders. It is always important that the right behavior should be encouraged, the wrong behavior should not be encouraged. But here in shaping, it is very essential that the teacher should wait for the positive behavior of the child. Since shaping is a very time consuming activity, the next option of systematic positive reinforcement could be modeling. In this particular modeling method, the student is advised to imitate or follow a person who is doing better in the studies, or who is, say for example, if the child is frequent absentee. So, for frequent absenteeism, if the teacher would like to work with that child, it becomes a challenge for the teacher to make him understand about how to come regularly, how to follow people who come regularly. Through this modeling method, the child may be interested in coming school regularly. Another important technique is the token economy. When we say token economy, it is in terms of praise, it can be in terms of monetary gifts or in terms of appreciation. Therefore, say for example, if a child stops stealing, then you can give him a token of chocolate, or you can appreciate him, or you can help the child in terms of a positive applause in the classroom. Say for example, not only stealing behavior, but also lying and also absenteeism, all these problems can be dealt effectively through positive reinforcement, is a method called token economy. Now, we are going to talk about the last important behavior modification technique, that is systematic desensitization. The term itself talks about systematic desensitization, that is the individuals having anxiety problems, individuals having fears of exams, students having fear of subject, or students having fear of school. Now, all these problems can be dealt effectively through systematic desensitization. In systematic desensitization, it includes relaxation techniques and also a gradual exposure of the fearful situations. Say for example, if the child is having problem with exams, now it is very important that the child should be exposed to examination halls, the child should be exposed to the teacher who is teaching the subject, and also all these can be exposed slowly to the student through visual effects, and then later on the relaxation component is also dealt through relaxation methods, and then the student is exposed systematically to all these visual effects, so that the anxiety towards exams is reduced. Let us summarize. Today we have learnt about classroom management, and in which we understand that classroom management is a set of techniques and skills where the teacher needs to imply in order to control the students in the classroom for having a positive learning environment. So, in addition to this, we have also learnt that there are certain principles which requires a classroom management, especially the teacher needs to equip oneself before going to the class, and in this regard the teacher needs careful planning. Also, the teacher, as part of instructional process, the teacher should be able to understand the behaviors of the pupils, because the pupils are coming from different socio-cultural and socio-economic backgrounds with different personality profiles. Therefore, it becomes very necessary that the teacher should be able to create a friendly environment in the classroom for effective reciprocal relationship in the learning process. Apart from this, it also becomes essential for the teacher to understand the group dynamics in the classroom by inculcating projects and assignments as such. And there are also certain research based principles that we have understood, developed by Jyoti, where she talks about the principles of clarity and the principles of mastery and all. And she also has mentioned that the teacher should be having a friendly environment, the learning and teaching activity should be pleasurable, because the various principles should also include that the teacher himself is also motivated in order to have a teaching and learning practice effective. And for which we also have understood that there are specific behavioral problems, especially we were discussing about 3 important problem behaviors among students. The first one was oppositional deviant disorder, where the students have a tendency to throw temper tantrums and also they disobey the rules. And conduct disorder is another important, most common disorder, where the students have a tendency to lie, they have a tendency to steal, and they have also a tendency to use drugs and all. Therefore, and in addition to all these 2, we have the third important problem, that is ADHD. Nowadays, India is also contributing to this sort of problem among children. So, attention deficit and hyperactive disorder, it has different genetic as well as psychological and social factors which create this sort of problems among children. Therefore, the teacher should be able to understand these problem behaviors among children and try to utilize the appropriate behavior modification techniques that we have discussed so far. And we have talked about the simple extinction method. These are all based on learning principles of, as I have mentioned about DCRR, the drive, that is the motivation, and the cues or the stimulus, the response and the reinforcement, which requires specific, modifiable and changeable behavior among the students. And we have also discussed about punishment method through aversion therapy. We have also discussed about the positive reinforcement method through token economy and modeling method. Finally, we have also discussed to minimize the anxiety among students in terms of exam anxiety. Some children also have fear of schools. So, therefore, through systematic desensitization, through inducing relaxation techniques as well as through gradual exposure of the stressful events and the anxiety related problems, the student can be dealt effectively through these behavior modification techniques.